So if you want to find this question, we're looking at specimen material 1. It's the creative reading and writing paper, and you can find that directly on the AQA website. This is the question we're looking at, and if you followed my videos, you will know that there's a danger in answering this question because this detail, your entry will be judged by a panel of people of your own age, could mislead you, and you might end up using vocabulary that is colloquial, the sort of chatty language that you would use for people of your own age, and that wouldn't score you very well at all because you wouldn't be thinking about crafting your sentences and choosing the very best vocabulary. So make sure you don't fall into that trap. Previous videos have also looked at this word here, and that is a liberating word because it tells you don't have to write a description about this picture. You could just write about what the picture suggests. You can follow the links with the cards up here to my other videos on this question, but today I'm going to show you some writing of what I'm going to call emerging writers. So these are students who are starting to feel their feet as writers. They're becoming confident but are not yet confident, and because of that they're reluctant to move away too far from the picture itself. And interestingly, that desire to stick to the picture is also mirrored in a desire not to experiment too much with their language. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to take you through some of the skills that my first student is trying to develop. So this is his opening. The train went off the tracks from the night before. The rain had been overwhelming, completely covering the track where it went into a crowded woody forest. And so I've started to highlight things here. You will see the alliteration that he's put in here, where here, overwhelming, he's reaching for the best vocabulary that he can find. Here he's listing two adjectives. It's something that writers often do, and Mr. Brough, in fact, recommends this as an A-grade technique. I don't think it's as good as that, but there you go. So that's the noun that it's describing, and you're adding extra detail by having both adjectives together. But what I particularly want to draw your attention to as this student develops as a writer is how hard he's working in his choice of verbs, and those I've highlighted in yellow. It derailed, and because of the terrifying speed that the train was going, practically jumped into the air, and because of how the tracks were laid down, the train twisted around in the air, smacking into a group of trees, tearing them all apart, carriage after carriage, knocking down as many trees as they could. So the language isn't quite fluent. However, let's just look at the positives here. These verbs are incredibly active. They're very, very descriptive for that reason. So jumped could have been bounced, but bounced is too soft a word. Jumped is more sudden. The train could have, I don't know. Again, it could have jumped around in the air. It could have wobbled around, but twisted is far more violent. It could have knocked into a group of trees, but smacking is again much more violent, and the onomatopoeia works really well there. It could have pushed or pulled them apart or knocked them apart, but instead tearing is far more violent. So you can see he's really thinking hard, especially with these three verbs, about how to have maximum impact. And then knocking down as many trees as they could is okay, but you can see that knocking is a slightly gentle, sound and verb. Somebody knocks at your door, it's quite polite, isn't it? Knocking something down isn't quite as destructive. Whereas, let's say tearing down, like this one here, or getting rid of down altogether and having uprooting is much more powerful. Now the other thing you can see is he's really trying to show off his sentence control I think this is a 59-word sentence that he's put here, which is quite a powerful way of letting the examiner know right at the beginning of your answer that you are fully intending to do brilliantly. Now, the other thing that you'll notice is in terms of SOAP aims, he's really only got one technique going on here, which is the alliteration. He doesn't have a simile. He does have the adjectives, sorry. He hasn't got personification. He hasn't used metaphor, and he hasn't really used the senses yet, although he's starting to with words, the onomatopoeic words like smacking. So you can see he's not fully confident. Let's look at his next paragraph. However, inside the train it's even worse. The passengers getting propelled into the windows. Again, you can see how hard he's working with that verb. Flattening them up under the debris. Again, a really powerfully worked verb there. He's working well with his vocabulary. And train. The inside of the train clearly not designed to be rattled about like it's being held by a young child. The cabinets being ripped off the walls, tables being torn out of the floor, the passengers' belongings being thrown around along with the trees and branches making their way through the smashed open windows into the battlefield of a carriage. So now you can see that here he's got a really powerful metaphor here. It works very well. The battlefield will describe the destruction in the carriage, but it will also describe the likely victims, the passengers. And hopefully you've spotted for yourself how hard he's working with his verbs. Smashed, thrown, torn, ripped. You can really get a sense of a writer trying to dramatize what's going on. Now, another technique that he's using is making sure that he's writing a description and not a story. So I've highlighted the verbs here in yellow: getting propelled, being ripped off, being torn out, being thrown around, making their way. You'll notice that he's using this participle, the ing, and that means the verb doesn't finish. And because the verb doesn't finish, all these things appear to be happening at the same time, and therefore it's not going to turn into a story. Effectively, what this writer has done is slowed down time to try to show you that all this stuff is happening at once in a matter of a few seconds, and that is a description, that's not a narrative, so he's going to hit those marks. And finally, on this piece of writing, he's used a simile here, like it's being held by a young child, and that works. It does describe the movement of this train, and it also suggests that whatever force is derailing it and causing the accident is almost doing it playfully without meaning to destroy. But that also suggests its terrible power, because if it meant to destroy, it might do it more clinically, more swiftly, without causing quite so much pain. But there's a weakness here, because it's being held, it happens in the present, and I need to just pop back to the beginning here and show you how the description started off in the past tense. So you can see how it derailed, the train went off the tracks, and that's a real mark of a writer who isn't quite secure. They often jump from the past to the present, and so this should have been "it was even worse" rather than "it is," to keep everything else in the past tense. Okay, well, the examiner simply uses two elements to the mark scheme. The first element looks at content and organisation. Well, let's just get into the examiner's head. They use this column first. They're really just trying to get a gut reaction. So is it compelling and convincing? No, because I found some problems with it. Okay. Is it consistent and clear? Well, you can see that when he played around with tenses there, that wasn't consistent. It is pretty clear though. So my gut reaction is it's not wholly consistent and clear. Is it some success? Well, some success sounds like too little success. So it's probably better than that and likely to meet that. So now let's just go through and work out what he's worth. The register is consistently matched to the audience. So the language he chooses is consistently right. Well, the tenses weren't, but otherwise it nearly was. Was it consistently matched to the purpose describing this train crash? Yes. Was his vocabulary increasingly sophisticated? Well, you got a sense of him really reaching for words, especially the verbs. Is it chosen for effect? Yes, it is. Does it have a range of successful linguistic devices? Well, it's got some alliteration and metaphor and a simile that doesn't quite work because of the tense, but I've already penalised it for the tense up here, so it probably does that. How is it organised? Well, it certainly has paragraphs. It uses these verbs that end in ing so that everything is happening at once. That's a structural feature. I'm going to give him credit for that. Is it engaging? Well, I couldn't predict the metaphor or the simile. So it is engaging. It's interesting. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. The ideas are connected. And are the paragraphs coherent? Do they work together? Well, I only looked at 2, but yes, they do. So my gut reaction here is this is probably going to get some of those bullet points. Does it get all of these? Yes. Register is generally matched to purpose and audience, and the vocabulary is chosen for effect and appropriate use of linguistic devices. So I'm going to say it meets all of those and it just gets into that. So my gut reaction is it's about a 16 there out of 24. Now, we don't know where the grade boundaries will be, but for me, in old money, this is a student who is on the borderline between a B and a C, which in new money will be a level 5 to a level 6. He's on that border, possibly more of a level 5. Well, in my gut reaction, he is. Now we'll look at the next thing that the examiners are looking for, and that is the technical accuracy. So this, interestingly, isn't just about punctuation. It's also about your vocabulary and sentence structure, not just to be clear, but to have some effect with accurate spelling and punctuation. So I've actually put in the correct spelling. You know, emerging writers often get the spelling wrong, and I've made sure that the commas were correct. So we're going to go straight in at the skills descriptor. Notice there's no gut reaction descriptor here that we had on the content and organisation section, so you have to go in at the bullet points. So the sentence demarcation is consistently secure, but there isn't a wide range of punctuation at all. Does he use a wide range, a full range of sentence structures? Well, he's got those 2 long ones. In a longer piece of writing, he might show that he does, but not here. He doesn't use standard English consistently because of his mistake with tenses. Is there a high level of accuracy in spelling? Yes, because I've made sure of that, but he doesn't have that much ambitious vocabulary, so he doesn't meet that. And the vocabulary isn't extensively ambitious, so he's not going to meet that level. However, he is going to meet all of that. His punctuation is okay. He's starting to use a variety of sentence forms for effect. He mostly uses standard English, and because his spelling is pretty good, because I've made sure of that when I typed it up, I can actually move from a 12 into a 13 here. So 13 out of 16, and that's at least a 5. That's at least a 6 or a B in old money. So altogether, if that writing had been consistent over getting on for 2 pages of writing, he would probably have got a B grade or a 6. Now, bear in mind that on a 40-mark question like this, 2 different examiners might give a mark that was 8 marks different. So when I say this is a B or a level 6 in my money, other examiners might disagree. You just have to accept that. But my video is trying to show you how I think about a piece of writing and how I would apply the marking criteria. I hope that helps you if you're an emerging writer who wants to get into the B grade. This, like I said, it would have been about a B minus if it had been sustained. Definitely good enough for a C though, or the new level 5. If it was, you know, towards the bottom of level 5, it would still be the equivalent of a C. So do subscribe if you'd like more videos, and buy my guide if you'd like to know more.